Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ladies of the PGS. It's RRRR here. And of course, we have with us Lorena Creole. Lorena, how are you tonight?
I am doing better, and I'm so glad I am actually sounding better than last week. As always, so glad to be here with you and with all of the wonderful, wonderful viewers there here on the Burnett Work channel.
Absolutely, Lorena. I am glad you are feeling better. You do sound better. I don't hear the congestion anymore. I hope that cough has cleared up. And that is a good thing because I could not do the show without you. And, a lot has been going on, Lorena. This is not the 2023 start. We're almost at the end of January. And
Hmm.
this is maybe not the 2023 I thought we were going to get. Things feel a little unsettled, don't they?
Hmm. Yeah, kind of like I don't even know how to put my finger on it. There's just been, with respect to entertainment news, there's been more churn than usual, with some situations happening that we didn't quite see coming.
Absolutely. And, I want to start off with this article, Lorena, that I was telling you about. And literally, as I said to you, it literally said, you have to read this article. So I did. I popped on this article, and even though I don't have it in the title, I couldn't help but ignore the fact that there is this story about Disney, Lorena. And, of course, Disney is pretty much the runner of what, half of the entertainment, 75% of the entertainment that I enjoy. And it's the
Mhm.
case for a lot of people. I remember growing up, Disney was what kids would watch. So they might just watch the Disney Channel the whole time. So it's a huge company. And we all know this. But
Mhm.
what's interesting is how shaky things were towards the end of 2022 for Disney. And, I didn't see it coming. None of us knew that it was going to be a change of the guard. But it seems like it's the same two guards that they choose. But
Mhm.
article talks about Disney and reorganization looms ahead of first earnings report since Bob Iger's return. And some of the article says things like, and this is the Hollywood Reporter. I'm reading it directly from the article. The initial exuberance and relief following Bob Iger's return as Disney CEO has been replaced by anxiety as speculation about a pending corporate restructuring is intensifying, and with it, rumors about the layoffs that are likely to follow. Sources say the moves could coincide with the company's Q1 2023 earnings report next month. Now, Lorena, we knew things were going to change when they changed the CEO. We knew that. But even I am kind of startled to think that there might be another massive restructuring, another, group of kind of whatever they decide to do. It makes it feel so unstable to me, Lorena. I don't like it. And I don't even work for Disney, but it makes making me feel uncomfortable. Um, and I have to be honest with you, I do have to ask the question, has there been, in your recollection, such a turbulent time for Disney? I mean, are they in a worse place than they were at the height of the pandemic?
We'll answer the second question first. Yes, they are in an extremely precarious place. One, Iger sunk a crap load of money into the bad acquisition of Fox. So you already had that was going on. They've been nickeling and diming the guests coming to their parks, the parks, which are the revenue stream for everything else that's going on with Disney. So plus they're also saddled with a ton of debt, and they still haven't paid off the debt that they acquired with buying the Star Wars IP. So they are very, very, very heavy laden. Although the interesting thing is, with the whole thing with the Fox acquisition, that was under Iger. So for people who were just like, oh, this is a relief that he's back, this is the same guy who set up the things that are the way that they are, pandemic aside. And now he's back, but it's still the same mess, actually, that he wound up initiating. So when you asked if there was a more turbulent time, That turbulent time, actually, when I believe I was like pretty young at the time, and I believe that's what happened with regards to the Eisner era that was going on, from what I understand. Disney actually almost went bankrupt
Mm-hmm.
at one particular point in time. So there has been the challenge that we're seeing with the proxy vote fight that's going on. Something like that hasn't happened since Iger's time.
Right.
Not sorry, not Iger, excuse me, Eisner's time was around.
Right.
And I found it interesting that Eisner started chiming up when Iger was reinstated. So I just find it very, very interesting. So many people who thought that Iger was going to save all this stuff, when in reality, he helped push this sucker near the cliff, and now he's back. So with, again, yet the layoffs, those are those are definitely coming. Those are definitely coming. They are not stopping that. They're going to have layoffs. And as a shareholder, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just like, Bob, where's my dividend? You know, the dividend that you cut out when the pandemic happened. None of my other stocks have done that. They have not brought back the stockholder dividend. So even though the stock price has risen, I mean, I still think it's overvalued. Not giving stock advice. This is just me personally. Um, why buy a stock that isn't doing the fundamental thing that being a stockholder you're expected to get, which is your payment of dividends?
Yeah, Lorraine, and I remember you were talking about that. I think it might have been you in Culture were talking about this dividends situation. And I personally, I was shocked when I had heard that they would even touch that, because a lot of times people rely on those dividends, just in general as part of their earnings, part of what they are expecting to, one of the benefits of owning the stock. Certainly, you can take that money and invest it and use it whatever way you like. The idea that that a stockholder wouldn't be getting that, the first thing that I think is, well, the dividends are going somewhere. If it's not going to the stockholder, then it must be going internally into the company somewhere. And I can't help but wonder about, at that time, when there were some executives who were getting payouts and bonuses of
Yes.
$23 million. Geeky Sparkles from Clownfish and from Pirates and Princesses had calculated that the $23 million would have been enough to keep everybody on for the entire year, all those cast members. But the dividends as well, that's the payments and bonuses that we know about. Some of these other contractual obligations and things that we don't even see on paper because they're just, kept private. It must be in the billions, Lorena. It must be billions of dollars of dividends, let's say over the past 2 or 3 years. And, that alone is quite surprising. And it really made me gasp when I heard about that. And then I thought, well, it's only temporary. It's only, during the pandemic, like you had mentioned. And yet it's still in a situation where people are not getting those dividends. Really shocking for
Nope.
such a high profile stock.
Very, very, very shocking. Also, another thing to keep in mind, and I'm glad you brought up about those bonuses, like CFO Christine McCarthy got a multi-million-dollar bonus. Remember, this is the company that laid off 30,000 cast members by email during the pandemic. And you had cast members who were running food pantries trying to help each other out. Not a word from Disney
Yeah,
at
and
all.
what's so strange about that, and at least this is how I look at this logistically, Lorena. What's so strange about that is that, they have all the resources to make food for their cast members. In other words, they could have just said, okay, the park is closed, but we're going to turn it into something for the cast members and their families. And we're just going to get in. It's not going to be, the $30, $40 hamburgers, but it could
Mhm.
be something else. And they could have picked up food there, pre-made food. Let people work, but let it work for the company itself. go ahead and make those meals. Like people come in and pick up meals or work or do some of the building and stuff that you normally would have to close off certain sections of the park, reemploy the same people in different positions. Certainly that could have been done. There's a lot of options that they could have done, Lorena. And it is a shame that that kind of went to waste, but it makes you wonder about this, because I got to tell you, these cast members, especially the performers who are so incredibly talented, they're the reason why you go to the park, Lorena.
Absolutely.
From the park on a regular basis. You see these cast members. They're not just, it's not just something that anybody can do. They keep themselves a certain way. They maintain, that kind of persona of a cast member. So when you see Ariel, she is Ariel. When you see Alice, she is Alice. When you see Mickey and Minnie, they are the way that you would expect them to be in the park.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody's going to put on the giant mask and everything to give you that experience and wave to you and kind of smile and give you a wink, because that's what we want to see. These cast members certainly deserve a lot more respect and credit than they get. But I am kind of disappointed to find out that they might be subject to these layoffs. I really feel for them, Lorena. It's really terrible.
It's bad because, the cast members, especially with the Central Florida area, it's like the cast members, I mean, they're hourly employees. Most of them are. Some are salaried, but most are hourly employees. So that's actually, that's going to be devastating. The Disney, with this particular company, besides, let's see, take Avatar 2 out of the mix. They're not really doing so great with respect to the movies that they've been putting out. They've been barely making the money that they sink into it, if they do. Other example for what's going on with the parks, Tron, that should have been open a long time ago, and it's not. And the 50th is almost effectively over. It'll be over, pretty soon. There's lots of issues that were going on with Disney, especially with respect to their quality of product. So this reorganization does not surprise me, but it's going to be painful. It's going to be painful. And on taking the pandemic out of it, because the pandemic hit everybody, the way that the company was set up, even before that pandemic happened, all lands in the lap of Bob Iger. So he definitely does not get a pass. Chapek did his damage, but ultimately the buck stops with Bob Iger.
And Lorena, you are, as I said, you go to the parks regularly, guys. Lorena is there pretty much weekly. So she knows what's going on there. But not only did she go to the park, she goes and she lets us know what's popping up. Sometimes they have these pop-up shops. She samples the dishes, these I don't know what you call them again. They're
disrespectful treats, desserts. Yes.
And all those things, Lorena, are the reasons why we're going. And you have your eye on this. We are noticing some things. I had spoken to you before about sort of the de-theming of some areas. I think it was Mickey, is it called Mickey Reports, or and he's another one, but I had sent that to you and you were saying, yes, I've been looking at that.
Oh yeah, Mickey Views. Yeah, Braden and Mickey Views. Yes.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, I said, gee, what is happening there? And I did kind of want to ask about what as a shareholder, because I know that you've mentioned that you are a shareholder, are you expecting to hear from the earning report, which is coming up very, very soon?
I haven't been following the earnings reports for quite a while, because they're actually kind of boring, and I haven't been too surprised with what I've been seeing. I expect for them to try to spin this as if it's, a great thing. They will probably say about how much money that their parks have made, but not tell you, at least not explicitly, that a lot of it is because of how they've jacked up the prices and trimmed down the portion sizes and the quality of those things. So they won't tell you that. So of course they're making more money because they're charging more money. I expect them to say that they're still keeping park reservations, which is ridiculous. They need to get rid of it. It's not about helping guests and managing guests. Park reservations are about artificial inflation of demand and data mining. Those are the two things. There's main two reasons why they have it. They won't tell you that, but that's exactly why they have it. I think I talked about potential lay. They probably will not say layoffs. They will probably say they see some upcoming financial challenges in the upcoming quarter. That is code for we are going to be slashing headcount. So there will be a lot of buzz about this. The earnings calls are not for peons like me with 2 or 3, shares of stock. It's for the big, JP Morgan chases and all of that, and all the questions are vetted ahead of time. So they're basically given pretty softball questions.
Yeah, it does make me wonder, and I know once this call comes out, there's going to be a lot of chatter about it because it feels like it doesn't feel like there's a plan in place, Lorena. It doesn't feel like there's some sort of action or something that they're going to do that would at least tell us, oh, this is the direction they're going in. We know if that's the case, then we know what to expect, but it doesn't feel that way. And he's been there a little while now. It's been a few weeks. I'm not saying that you could do everything overnight, but since he's been there before, he's been in charge before, I would have expected to see a little bit more of an announcement and kind of a bit of confidence in what is expected from Disney at this point. So that's the part that really makes me wonder about it. But I'm so glad that you're here to talk about this, because I don't get a chance to really go to the parks, but I know that by you going to the parks, you notice these things. A lot of this has to do with that immersion factor of being in the park and why you want to be there and the experience that families expect when they go to the park. So, we're going to see what happens. Those cast members, they're the ones that make it feel like magic. Honestly, Lorena.
They really do.
Even the ones that you're buying food from, like everybody has their thing, they're in costume and all, they make it fun for all of us. So I am concerned about them having another blow, especially after having gone through so much the past few years. Now, Lorena, last night, you and I did a watch party on Positive Fandom for The Last of Us season 1, episode 3. And both you and I were somewhat stunned by what we saw. And guys, when I say stunned, The Last of Us is a survival horror game. And as a survival horror game television adaptation, which has been quite spectacular up to this point, I was not expecting an episode like what we saw last night, Lorena. And you and I had talked about it on my channel, how initially when we saw the episode and when the episode started, we were expecting to see some really shocking things. And unfortunately, that's not what we saw. What we ended up seeing, I don't know if I can stop that. What we ended up seeing was more of a love story. And it kind of dominated the episode. It was intense. And I saw this article, so I did feel like I needed to pop it up here tonight because you and I were talking about this last night. It was The Last of Us, and I think we were expecting more shocking, kind of scary things. In this article here, it says that the creators of The Last of Us talk about casting Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett and crafting the series' most heartfelt episode. I cried so hard it hurt. Now, I almost want to think, Lorena, that if they are saying this is the most heartfelt episode, that this is it. It's going to get hardcore after this. We're going to see things that are just going to stun us like the last 2 episodes pretty much. But I couldn't help but ask myself, will it get more hardcore? Because this was quite emotional, quite different from what I was expecting. Will this heartfelt moment leave us, and then perhaps things will pick up going forward, you think?
If they're smart, things will pick up. When we're watching zombie apocalypse types of series, even we'll just say we'll condense it. Even if we're watching a zombie apocalypse types movie, yes, you'll have these sort of heartfelt or high comedy sections of the story, but then it kicks right back into high gear because, truth be told, we are watching this to basically be scared out of our mind and just grossed out beyond all comprehension. That's what we are expecting, to see. So I would hope that they're putting the pedal to the metal after this one to give us, that feeling of, oh my God, it's the end of the world. We have to survive. We have to get through this. And, all these clickers are out to get you. So,
Yeah, and I think it was very interesting in the episode. It does deal with adult themes. It's still a very adult show. This was not
mhm.
sort of the family get together, sit around for under,
Yeah.
it really wasn't. I think that these two gentlemen were spectacular here. And of course, this interview they're saying that it was stellar and heartbreakingly tender third episode of The Last of Us. And the article says a person might consider it one of the best pieces of television this year. I don't know about that. What I can say is it threw us for a big loop, Lorena, because it started off where you got to see Joel and Ellie, and they were walking along the countryside, and you saw on the ground this kind of mass grave. Gee, that was scary. And then you got to see the clothing that was in the mass grave, and then they showed you the people who the clothing belonged to. And I thought, and just like you did, I was terrified. I thought we were going to unfortunately see something we didn't want to see. So they scared me in that, and I said, "Oh man, this is gonna break me." I had no idea I was going to see, this romance episode, which is what it really turned into. I think it was interesting. I did like the characters in it. And it was not a 50-minute episode, Lorena, 75 minutes of this, of
Mhm.
seeing. And I love to see preppers. I actually like anybody who has OCD, and you can watch them doing that stuff where everything's marked and they got a notebook and they check it off, and they have 6 or 7 backups. I love seeing that person. And we did get to kind of see a character like that.
Mhm.
But it was unexpected and you and I were talking about what we might have thought they were going to show, because it did have a tragic ending regardless of
Mhm.
what we saw. But it certainly was, a 75-minute episode that I didn't think we were going to get, Lorena. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw an episode where people were in love like this. And, of course, it has its ups and downs, but it
Mhm.
really was very different and unexpected. I think that I think that the two guys in the episode here, they have the title saying it's love in the time of cordyceps. But even in a regular time, they were very lucky to find one another. I'm not going to go into too much about it, Lorena, but I was just very surprised by it. And so I guess if they were trying to surprise us, they surprised me. I really thought that I was going to see, some kind of devastating event. And I guess it was a devastating event. It was, but it was very different than what I thought. And I'm almost wondering, like you said yesterday, Lorena, are we going to see a payoff down the line because of this
Mhm.
episode that was very detailed, beautifully written, but it almost at times didn't feel like you were in the zombie apocalypse. It kind of took you away from the moment. I know sometimes people say you need episodes like that just to kind of give you a break from a lot of that. What
Mhm.
did you think, Lorena? Do you think that this episode, like you said before, will there be a payoff? And did it give us a break? Did we need a break yet? It is only episode 3.
Um, like I said when watching the watch party last night, I felt that this episode was too much filler too early. On the technical note, it was a very well written episode. However, with only 2 episodes in the can, full of action, and we're trying to find out where Joel and Ellie are going next. That's who we're invested in. We just lost Tess. the episode prior. So I'm expecting to see some kind of reckoning in some kind of way with that. So when we come up here with Frank and Bill, which is a very, very well crafted love story, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, why should I care about watching this? Because it's just like, what does it have to do with the main characters? What does it have to do really with advancing the story? And when you did see that scene of Joel and Tess with them outside having dinner, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's where, where it fits in. But we didn't go back to that. So I'm really hoping that there is a payoff for this because it's a very, very well crafted episode, but it's too early. And if there isn't some payoff further on down the line, I really feel that this was wasted.
Yeah, and I think we could have used an episode like this maybe after episode 5 or 6, where we might have suffered in even more loss. Obviously, we did lose Tess, and as you said, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of when they visited. We did see a little bit, but a little bit more of their special moments between them as well. I think that would have been very interesting, and then I think it would have balanced out the response that Joel had. I mean, he doesn't even want to hear Ellie say Tess's name. That's how upset he is right now.
Yeah, and I didn't like the whole telling with that because it's just like, no, you need to show us why is it for us who we're catching up here, why is it that he just cannot bear to hear her name? Even at the end when and I'm getting the characters mixed up. When I guess when Frank's letter is there,
Mhm.
or is it Bill's letter? Frank's letter is there is basically, telling Joel, I never really liked you anyway, but I respected you. I'm like, well, what did we see to give us, that kind of impression? So when I shared with you the letter that I saw on Twitter, which is I guess the suit, the suicide note from
Mhm.
the video game, I said that makes a lot more sense
Yeah,
to
and,
me.
you make a good point with that, and I agree with you on this, Lorena. Certainly, it was unfortunate to see, that they did kinda change it around, but I don't know whether
Yeah.
a good change for the series necessarily. As I said, there was no reason for Bill to dislike Joel. Like, Joel's a nice guy, so why
Yeah. It's like we haven't seen any evidence, for that. So like I said, it was a very well written episode, but at the end I'm kind of just like, what why should I care about this? So that's why for me it's like literally the lowest rated episode just because it just does not it's too early for me to really care. They haven't really given me anything to care about Bill and Frank and how they relate with Joel and Ellie. So it's unfortunate, but I'm hoping, I am really, 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 really hoping that there's a payoff for this.
Yeah, so am I. I hope there's a reason why we had to go through this and see this. Certainly was a great performance by those 2 actors, and
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'd say that they look like it almost look like a very fun-loving couple, so I certainly don't begrudge them of that, entertainment value. It was good, but it didn't feel like I was in that zombie apocalypse, which is fine,
Hmm.
but, I'm hoping that there's some secret, Lorena, there's some reason why they did this, so let's just keep our
Yeah.
fingers crossed.
We'll see. It's like I'm giving them latitude.
Yes.
I'm being gracious.
Yes, yes, and I think a lot of people feel this way, and we shall see in the next few days. Another thing that seemed to pop up, and unfortunately, these 2 shows, Doom Patrol and Titans is kind of one of my favorite shows, just because it's so out there. They
Hmm.
have fun with the characters. I really like, I mean, it's kind of interesting because I'm not quite sure why this is happening to James Gunn, or at least I suspect I know why it's happening. But a lot of people are kind of looking to him whenever I guess there's bad news about. And, I don't know about you, but initially when I heard about James Gunn coming on board, I was very excited about that. I said, the guy knows what he's doing. It's going to be, very interesting things. And I kind of do feel this way. But of course, there were some things over the last year that made me question, why certain things were happening, why choices about certain stars were happening. And then with Titan and Doom Patrol being canceled, it's unfortunate, but I watched most of Titans. As I said, I love the character played by Joshua Oren, who is Connor Kent, who is Superboy. He's a combination of Luther and Superman, which I think is perfect. And they were smart enough, Lorena, to make him look like Superman. So I'm like, good going, guys. That you were right about that choice. But what's interesting is the idea that I guess people are holding James Gunn responsible for the fact that the shows are canceled. He, I think it's strange. Here it says James Gunn says, don't blame him for the recent cancellations of Doom Patrol and Titans. And of course, as I said, both shows will end their 4 seasons. 4 seasons is a good run. Offering 2 legs of 6 episodes for a total of 12 shows to close things out. Mm-hmm. And it says the cancellations were seen by some as part of the changes Gunn and Peter Safran are bringing to DC Studios as they attempt to redevelop its faltering universe. So they're saying, hey, we didn't have anything to do with this. It happened before we came on. He says, I certainly wish the best for the talented group of actors, creators, and the rest of the crew that produced the both shows. And, I only have to wonder about this, is he going to become like, and I don't even want to say her name, but she has the initial K in her name. I'm not going to say more than that, where I know a lot of blame has been placed on the person, and that's okay. Like, I don't feel that way, but a lot of people feel this way. Is he becoming the brand new version of that person? Maybe through no fault of his own, Lorena. I mean, is it kind of bizarre that there's a sentiment to place the cancellation blame on him, or even anything at this point? And he now is in a point where he's like, no, it's not me. It's not me. I think it's very interesting that he responds, but does anyone, I don't know. I think people are not taking what he's saying to be the truth, but I don't know why, Lorena. Is there some kind of bias against him at this point?
I would say emotions are very, very raw with regards to this. With respect to Kathleen Kennedy, because I will name who she is. She's a completely different animal. She's been in the Hollywood game for decades. She knows where a lot of bodies are buried. She was the person who had the producer credit behind her, but due to several missteps on Disney's part, that's why that ship sank. James Gunn is not of the same caliber with those decades of experience. So he's kind of like the new kid on the block, so to speak. He's the director for the most part. He got this opportunity to go over to DC. Now, I will say you may not be getting the whole entire story with this. He could have had input to do with that, but the person ultimately responsible for dropping the hammer ideally would be Zaslav. Now, Zaslav might have asked him, hey, James, does this fit in with your plan? Does Titans fit in with your plan? Does the other one fit in with your plan? Because if it doesn't, we got to get rid of them.
Yeah,
that conversation could have gone down. So considering, no Henry Cavill, and, we're still salty about that. I know I'm not even a hardcore DC fan. I'm still salty when it comes to the fact that Henry Cavill's not there, with all the other stuff that's been, 86 and all of that. With a lot of people, with just your general fans, that rejection is very raw. And because James Gunn is on social media, David Zaslav is not on social media. That's why he's getting all of that vented at him. So it could have had something to do with him. It could not have had something to do with him. He is not really under any obligation to tell us, honestly. And that's kind of like how Hollywood works. I mean, you're not going to get there's their story, that story, and the real story, and you may not get all of that information. But ultimately, whether a show goes or does not go, the buck stops with Zaz Labs. So with James Gunn, I mean, I liked Guardians of the Galaxy. I did not like the Suicide Squad. I thought that movie was horrible. I didn't really like it. But we'll have to see what he does. I really have no dog in this fight whatsoever because I'm not real big into DC. So it's just like, we'll see what he does. Maybe I'll be interested. Maybe I won't. I'm no Cavill. I'm really not predispositioned to be predispositioned to be interested in what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, it is very interesting, kind of looking at this and, the idea or at least the feeling that, he's somehow responsible. I just thought it was very interesting because, this sentiment towards having to find someone to blame for this is really, obviously in the tweet below it says that it's canceled because what does it say? I can't read it from there. It says the fans say is good luck, and it is ending due to the new direction of James Gunn and Safran. So, I'm sure that kind of like, I don't know whether that tweet at the bottom is true or not, but I just thought that was very interesting. How could you not think that? It's almost, it seems to make sense that would be the course of things. So
Yeah, I mean, he's not. His hands aren't. I would say me putting on, my tinfoil mini ears. His hands are not completely clean of this. You and I, we've been in, executive meetings where they're just like, okay, so let me know, is this a good deal or not? Is this worth us doing or not? And if you say, hey, it's not, and here's, all the evidence, you're not the one that pulls the trigger per se, but you're the one that loads the gun. So while the hammer isn't ultimately on your head, you are kind of involved with that. So James's hands aren't exactly clean, but it is what it is. If it doesn't work with the plan that he has instituted, then it doesn't work, and it just is what it is.
yeah, and I have a feeling that this is going to be one of many announcements that we see this year of different things either ending or shifting. Titans was one of the good ones, as far as I was
You told
concerned.
me about it.
It was fantastic. Essentially, you had it's the group of everybody here on the right hand side, and as I told you, I was a huge fan of Superboy, but there was a bunch of other characters that people absolutely love. In it, one of the ladies, I'm trying to find more information on it because I had it in front of me and I moved it. There's Nightwing in it. There's Coriander, Starfire. She's this lady here in the middle. Um, One of the kids from the show, I think, was in the Batman. So there was like a hint of a crossover. It
Mm-hmm.
was really a fun series, a little bit offbeat, Lorena. It was offbeat.
Uh-huh.
And, it was just, they had fun with these characters. It wasn't, and the guy from Reacher was in it. He played,
You did Aquaman, right?
well, in this one, he played Dove because there was a
Oh,
hawk.
okay.
I think there was a hawk. He played Hawk and Doug. I think that's one of
Okay.
the
Okay.
key characters who were in it there. But Lorena, it was really good and just fun. They had fun with this. It wasn't meant to be taken too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's one episode where Superboy is supposed to meet his father. And of course, I'm like, well, that's Lex Luthor. He's a combination of Lex Luthor and Superman. So how's this going to work? Like it was very interesting, very, just a lot of fun to kind of enjoy this. It almost is kind of a little bit of what if ish, but it was fun and it wasn't taken too seriously. I think that a lot of people had fun with it for that reason. And you could go where you couldn't go with the movies. Like it was meant
Mm-hmm.
for that foray into the superhero world. And
Right.
Girl, I never watched, but I really enjoyed Titans. Very, very offbeat superhero show that could only be made in that world. So, so I enjoyed it, and I encourage anybody to watch it. I really enjoyed it a lot. So, there's 4 seasons. It's a good amount of episodes. That's a good run these days.
Yeah, it's a good one. 4
So,
seasons.
Yeah, so I was just grateful to even have it. In fact, when I saw that it existed, I was just thrilled. We were lucky to have it. I hope they do more things like this in the future. Who knows what they're going to be doing, Lorena, with this
Mm-hmm.
certain future that we have, ahead of us, at least from what I've been seeing. And, you know, um, recently you and you were kind enough to join me for a watch party on Positive Fandom for the Golden
Mm-hmm.
Globes. And that was a very long ceremony. But a lot of the winners were not surprises. Um, and of course, as you and I know, these award ceremonies and how people are getting nominated has always been something that's come into question. And I think one of the nominations that none of us were surprised by was Angela Bassett's nomination. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that she was going to be nominated. And, I thought, okay, that's fine. She was nominated. We get that. And then you and I started talking. And of course, when she got nominated, it became sort of like the first woman to be nominated for, or anybody to be nominated in a Marvel film.
Mm-hmm.
So, not a surprise that any Marvel film would be nominated. But then I started to think, well, what about all the incredible performances we'd seen before? My favorite, as I've said to you before, is in Civil War between Tony and Captain America, of course. And the passions get so high in Civil War that I enjoyed it. I kind of feel like that was some other, areas that people could have been nominated. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but in addition to getting this Golden Globe, she's also obviously nominated for an Academy Award. And I did want to ask you, just out of curiosity, were there any other Marvel performances you think should have been nominated that were overlooked over the years?
Hmm. Well, I have felt some of them have been overlooked. Of course, depending on how much money you have, how much campaign money that you have, that can also make a difference. I remember when I lived in Los Angeles, I always knew when award season was coming up because in LA Times and everywhere else, for your consideration. And unless you have the money to kind of push that, you're kind of left behind in the dust, so to speak.
Hmm. Hmm. No, you make a good point, and I definitely am going to touch on that for sure, because that's part of this whole discussion that you and I were talking about, is pretty much Chadwick Boseman. And I know he's gone, and we still do love this man so much. My goodness, we love this guy. And so, we have his memory, and I thought to myself, I think that the Academy should consider giving him an Oscar, anyway. I almost feel like he was nominated for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which is
Hmm.
a jazz film, and he was wonderful in that. And he's made, I guess, maybe 15 films. He's done a lot of work, and has done very, very well as an actor while he was alive. But
Hmm.
started to think about it, and it's like I thought that if they gave him something like that, it would give us closure as well. I think that it would kind of be the Academy saying, hey, you know what, this was one of the most incredible losses we've had, we're going to give him this. And then I started thinking, well, maybe they don't think that the films like Black Panther are
Hmm.
significant because it's Marvel. I started to think that. And yeah, I thought about his performance in Civil War and then in Black Panther and how amazing he was in that, and all the performances in Black Panther. It just made me wonder why they would not consider doing something like that now for him. So, these things are going through my mind. They say that they're going to, change things around or add different things, but that might be something they could consider doing, because I still enjoy watching his performance in that film. Lorena, how about you?
I did love Chadwick Boseman's performance in that. Um, I don't know, with the posthumous thing. I'm kind of torn when it comes to that, just because when he was taken so suddenly and kept so much of that under wraps. I don't know. It's like I don't quite know how I feel about giving him an Oscar posthumously for that. Probably because I could see if it was like a special award that they would give him. But I know for me, as much as I love Chadwick Boseman, I don't feel his best performance was in Black Panther. I
Mm.
feel his best performance was in Captain America Winter Soldier.
Ah, interesting, interesting. Yeah, well,
And in Civil War, yes, but definitely just because for me the besides besides Infinity War, which is like
mhm.
3 for me. Iron Man 1 is number 1. Captain America the Winter Soldier is number 2. That movie is absolutely incredible. Chadwick is amazing in that film. But I think it's just such an open wound with his death. I think that like a posthumous Oscar, mm, I don't know. I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not a fan of it. I'm kind of just in the middle.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, it was definitely something that had crossed my mind. And getting your opinion on that does mean it's very relevant, to know how people feel about that. And part of what made me think about that was just because of his incredible performances and them not being recognized before. So, it was something that I was considering. And you mentioned for your consideration. And of course, that's pertaining to people, members of the academy who are allowed to vote on
Hmm.
who gets these academy award, and also they're part of the nomination process as well, I think. um, and you and I've been talking about these nominations, and honestly, right now I'm trying to catch up on some of the films that I haven't seen. I think personally that Everywhere, All at Once will be, it's going to just do incredible. It has
I agree.
so many nominations. Michelle Yao is amazing. It's just going to be spectacular. And then I remembered you and I, we watched a film called RRR, which was spectacular,
Yes.
in almost every way, Lorena. It had it all, and it was nominated for Best Song. And the cast is happy. They're happy about this. It is a good thing that it was nominated. I'm certainly not knocking a nomination, but I also felt like it should have been recognized for more. What do you think, Lorena? Do you think RRR should have been recognized for more, especially in a year where we didn't get, as many action, let's say, films or films that have everything like that, except for maybe Everything Everywhere All at Once? What are your thoughts on RRR and its treatment as a film that has been so successful? And it's gone well beyond grassroots. It's, actually had an impact on filmmaking. What do you think?
First of all, RRR is an amazing movie. And I was actually talking with Alan Ing of Film Threat about this very thing. For folks who don't know, Alan, who's a part of Chris Gore's Film Threat, he actually got to meet SS Rajamouli and NTR and Ram Rao. This film it's amazing. It's touched so many people. It's gotten so much buzz. But as far as the Oscars is concerned, it's not an American film. That's pretty much it in general. It's not an American film. It's a foreign film, but it's not within the vein of the types of films that the Oscars would nominate. Case in point, RRR was not submitted by the Indian Film Commission for consideration for the Oscars. It was not. They nominated a movie that is very much like Cinema Paradiso. And one of my Indian viewers on my channel basically called that film poverty porn.
Oh,
Yes. And because I couldn't really figure out why? I'm like, RRR was just like this amazing a grand scale. If you want to talk about like a movie that looked like it came straight out of Hollywood with respect to production value, that was definitely RRR. So why did this other movie, I think it's called was it The Last Picture Show? I'm trying to, I'm forgetting what it is, but it was basically this little boy, he's impoverished. He gets to see movies in a theater, and that's like he just falls in love with
Yeah,
movies.
that is Cinema Paradiso. That is Cinema Paradiso. Yes.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about the Indian one.
that's exactly the one I'm talking about.
Okay. Okay.
Because when we talked about it, you're like, that sounds like Cinema Paradiso, and we're just
Yeah.
like, that compared to RRR doesn't quite seem right. So when a viewer posted that, I said, okay, that kind of adds the political angle onto what's going on with that. And I do believe that it is a Bollywood film. RRR is a Tollywood film. South Indian cinema is extremely, extremely popular, but it's usually the Bollywood movies that get nominated. So RRR is not something that the Academy would normally nominate or try to, at all. But they cannot ignore how popular Natu Natu is. Technically, with the choreography, you cannot ignore that. You can't ignore that. And like Alan and I actually were talking about, and he said that if the Oscars were smart, number one, the reason why a lot of people are watching the Oscars this year is because of RRR. So if they're smart, they will let Natu Natu be performed live at the
Yes.
Oscars, because MM Kiravani is, I believe, he's still in town. So that can't be denied, because Natu Natu, if you watch TikTok, it is all over the place. You can't ignore that.
Yeah, Lorraine, and that's my favorite dance routine of all time. Like, I've never seen anything like it. I still am amazed at seeing the two lead male actors do that dance, Lorraine. I just am marveled over what they could accomplish. And I can't take my eyes off them when they started dancing. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I said, this is the most incredible dance scene ever. I said, they should be nominated for this, like best dance performance in a film, RRR, like it just really, they deserve it. And, it just seems like this whole thing keeps continuing. We're doing this small criticisms or critique of these nominations. Has to do with another very unusual story, Lorena, about a film that was promoted by 3 members of the Academy, which happens. Like, they do this. They promote films that they like, but many are saying that it was done unfairly. And a lot of what they're being criticized for is holding private screenings for other Academy members, which I would imagine these guys do all the time, right? They meet for, oh yeah, we're going to watch this film tonight. Come on over. But what they're saying is that the campaign and the way that it was done was presumably unfair. And the film that I'm talking about is a film called To Leslie, where the actress, when she was nominated, the film made around $25,000, $30,000. And even the actress is saying, I'm not sure how this happened. I don't know how I'm even nominated for this. But somehow it was nominated. And a lot of people are saying it's a great film, but the Academy is not happy with how it was handled and how it made it to a point where the lead actress is nominated for the award. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this is something that the Academy shouldn't really have a problem with, because at this point in the game, they've been criticized so heavily for pretty much not really having any kind of set in stone manner that things should be done. So then, they created this thing about you have to have this many of this in a film and this many of that in a film. And yet they don't have anything very specifically about how Academy Award members can meet up and then go ahead and see it. And so it says, in the last days before voting closed, a campaign on social media led by those stars and others, stars that we love, Demi Moore, Jane Fonda, Naomi Watts. I love all these stars. Kate Winslet, Laura Dern, Frances Fisher, and many more rocketed this particular actress's name into the conversation. And, I'm like, I still don't understand why this is a problem, but they feel that it wasn't conducted in a fair and ethical manner. That kind of surprised me because everybody is doing this. Here it says changes to guidelines may be needed in a new era of social media and digital communication. Now, they must have known. They must have known that this was happening. Are they picking on these actresses? I've mainly only read actresses' names. It is great that this young woman was nominated. I get that. I have no problem with that. But
Mhm.
are they picking on these actresses in something that we are all doing now? This is the norm now. This isn't different from what we're doing. Was this movie, do you think, promoted unfairly, or is this a little ridiculous at a time when we're all sending each other messages about what to watch and doing a show like this about what to watch?
I think it's ridiculous because how many times has some movie been nominated for an award for an Oscar and nobody has freaking heard of it, seen it, or anything? It's played at a couple of little art house movie theaters just in time for the cutoff at the end of the year to be eligible for the Oscars. What I think is that the Academy is just salty that people got very, very savvy in the era of social media and got hype enough for this movie and got it submitted, and it got the attention of people. I mean, how different is it from the way I'm forgetting the gentleman's name, who's American, who's like been putting stuff in print about RRR for the Oscars on Twitter? RRR for Oscars has been trending for I don't know how long. That's been a social media campaign, but you don't hear anything about that. So I think what the Academy is mad about is that they're mad they've been outsmarted.
Well, something, perhaps they have been outsmarted. As far as I'm concerned, it seems like they follow the rules, and it's okay to be excited about a film and promote it. I mean, these are the artists
Absolutely.
who are excited about a production, and let them be excited. And I congratulate the actress who is nominated. And the last thing that I am going to say is that I also think, now I know I told you, I had asked you the question about Boseman, and for that was like for your consideration. If you and I were members, Lorena, would we ever want to add that to the ballot or not? Well, another thing that I want to mention, Lorena, as we close out the show, that one of the highest performing movies last year was completely snubbed. And of course, I'm talking about Top Gun Maverick.
Yes.
And Lorena, this reminds me a lot of what had been happening in the music industry for so long. And what would happen is that an album or a song could be number one in the country, in the world, and not be recognized by getting a Grammy or any other kind of recognition or award. And, there's kind of a famous protest about it. But then I also, makes me wonder about Top Gun Maverick, which is a great film. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it deserved, just by technical difficulty alone, because those technical shots were just unbelievable. I mean, that was, I'm not ever going to go up in a fighter jet like that. And of course, it was the actors themselves. This really was a film that certainly made us believe, just like the previous year with Spider-Man No Way Home, that a movie can make a ton of money. Now, Avatar came in late in this. It also was a high performer, but Lorena, Top Gun Maverick was one of those feel-good films that, brought more adult in nature. I'd say a feel-good film, had some very interesting nostalgic elements to it, and was, maybe one of my favorite films of the year. How do you think the Academy should handle this when a film that clearly deserved a nomination for something didn't get anything?
Well, again, it goes back to how quote unquote stuffy the Academy is. Usually, action films, especially science fiction films, are poo-pooed by the Academy. Avatar didn't even get nominated at all. It's just something about the Academy when it comes to movies that are very popular with the hoi polloi. They don't really recognize that. And it even goes way back to when Star Wars: A New Hope was nominated but beat out by, of all things, Annie Hall. I mean, that didn't make sense. The Oscars has a history of looking down their nose at movies that are popular with the general the general public. So I don't think that's ever really going to change. I've seen so many movies that were popular with audiences. Like I always say, like with Do the Right Thing, that got snubbed. I remember Kim Basinger actually, when she had to present, actually said, "There's one movie up here that should be, and it's not, and it's Do the Right Thing."
Yes,
I
yes.
remember she said that, and this is the same Academy that didn't give Denzel Washington the Oscar for Malcolm X, but gave it to him for Training Day instead.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And I think something very similar happened to Whoopi Goldberg, who didn't get it for The Color Purple, but got it for Ghost. Certainly
Mhm.
her stellar performance or best performance. And you make a good point, Lorena, with all of this. It is something to think about. And I think that Spike Lee got the last laugh because he's kind of become, the favorite at Cannes. So
Mhm.
and he also, I can't remember what it was, but he got some other kind of award or fellowship recently. So he's finally
Okay.
getting a little bit more recognition, Lorena, at least on the international level, because his films, he captured a very important cultural moment. So I agree with you on that. I think it's something to think about. And here they are, going after the ladies just for, looking at films online, which is what we all do. So let's hope that some of that changes, where we don't see things that just we feel should be recognized and or not. And maybe they'll go ahead and say the top performer will get an award. Um,
Mhm.
how about something like that? Certainly, they could make more categories. At least that's what I think. But we'll see how this goes as many
Mhm.
of the members of the academy, increase. I know they've got more members have been voted in recently. And we'll see going forward. Certainly, a film like To Leslie coming out of nowhere and certainly making a splash in the news with
Mhm.
Oscar buzz. And guys, I do just want to thank all of you guys for joining us tonight. Lorena, where can people find you?
Well, folks, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Instagram, and of course, you can find me on YouTube with various live streams and videos, including some with positive fandom. And of course, you can find me here on the Burnett Network for Ladies of the PGS.
Absolutely, guys. Please do like and subscribe to Lorena's channel. I believe her link is in the chat here. Thank you, Tom Jr. Jackson, for doing that. As always, you are the moderator here.
Mhm.
Why is it not? Okay, it popped up and I was like, where'd it go? You are a very good friend, Tom. You are the moderator here. You're also my collaborator. We are all goof people, everybody. So do please like and subscribe to Lorena Creel's channel. It's in the chat, guys. Please do like and subscribe to Positive Fandom. After you like and subscribe to Lorena Creole's channel, tomorrow at 5 o'clock, I'm going to be hosting Cameron Pasha on my channel, where we're going to be reviewing The Messenger, Lorena, a movie about Muhammad. It's
Mm.
going to be a fantastic review. Lorena, you and I just did a recording that's going to be airing here on the Burnett Network about Planet of the Apes, guys.
Mhm.
Of course, we have a special here that's going to be coming out. It's one of the best discussions I've ever had with you, Retro Nerd Girl and Cameron Pasha. That's going to be airing right here on the PGS on the Burn Network pretty soon. So
Mhm.
I just want to thank everybody in the chat for coming tonight. And yeah, for all of you out there, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always do remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.